Thanks, Charlene, and hello to everybody, and welcome to the session today. Girish made the point that we're bringing life to things, and we've spent the last 5 or 6 years talking about the Internet of Things at IDC, and we're really moving beyond the concept of simply saying, let's do IoT. IoT is a huge and vast expanse of activities. It incorporates cloud, it incorporates endpoints, it incorporates third-party data. And we're now in the last year and this year really getting real with IoT and starting to talk about how we apply it to the transformation of consumer life, industrial environments, and public health and safety. And today I just want to share with you some of the points we've come up with. And if we look at the next slide, you'll see that we annually do, could you go to the next slide, please? We annually do what we call a futurescape, where we bring together all the analysts in a particular area and we ask them to look into their crystal ball and project what's going to come out of the next couple of years. And one of the things that came out really strongly in the manufacturing and future of operations discussions was that there will be an increase over the next 3 to 4 years in support of autonomous operations. The investments in data governance, digital engineering, and digital operations. Now, why we're seeing a change now rather than 10 years ago, right? It's always been a goal to increase the efficiency of manufacturing and supply chain operations. But we're seeing an increase in labor wages across the traditionally low-cost markets, China, Philippines, even Vietnam, and some of the other markets. So they're moving upwards, so it's less effective to throw people at the problem. We're also seeing an increase in e-commerce and direct-to-consumer activity, and we're looking at increasing levels of plant and asset management capabilities or demands so that we can actually keep the equipment running without much more reliably, do proactive maintenance on those pieces of equipment. And as a result, we're anticipating a 74% CAGR in the spend around that maintenance side of the business to 2024. And finally, safety. We want to get people with, in resources, in agriculture, in manufacturing, we want to get them out of harm's way. So we want to increase the safety of those people so they can bring their skills to bear rather than, being down a mine shaft and at a coal face or at a mine face. So we can use remote operations of equipment to make those things more effective. Overall, that combination is leading to this change and investment. Next slide, please. So as Girish said, nice to have my thunder stolen. We expect that digital transformation overall in 2021 will be about $1.5 trillion worldwide. We think that's going to reach $2.4 trillion by 2024, and that's an increase of 82%. Now, of that, Asia Pacific accounts for just over a third, and we're actually driving an increase in that spend. It's accelerating over the period to 2024 to about $904 billion. So it's almost doubling in 5 years, which is a pace that outreaches the other regions globally. And then when we go a little bit deeper, manufacturing in Asia Pacific is $195 billion in this year in terms of transformation activities, and that's going to grow to about $311 billion by 2024. So we've got significant attention to DX in manufacturing, and that attention is translating into commitment of funds to actually make a change in the business. And it's not just because we want to have technology involved. The increased capitalization and automation with industry is a survival attribute for manufacturers who are looking to compete maintain their profitability margins, and bring increasingly complicated products to market and meet the needs of consumers. Next slide, please. So across all industries, we've got a number of priorities. Operational risk and resiliency is the number one for the next 3 to 4 years. That's not only a function of post-COVID life or in COVID life, but also a function of just the way business is going. We're seeing this combination of capital equipment, artificial intelligence, and data-driven outcomes with people to optimize processes. And that's a big driver. Now, on the other side, manufacturers are really looking at operational excellence. They, again, as I said, are facing pressure on their cost level. They're facing increased personalization demands from their end customers. So they're looking for operational excellence, but they're also looking to reduce operational risk and increase their focus on product innovation. So let's do more with what we've got. Let's make it better. Let's make it more efficient. And as you look at the trend lines on pretty much any manufactured product, we're seeing introduction of robotics, drones in the manufacture process, also technologies like 3D printing and other areas to make that manufacturing process more effective. Next slide, please. So when we look at the priorities, you can see that robotic manufacturing or capital equipment-led manufacturing is by far the largest CAGR and largest investment over the next couple of years. But underneath that, this delivery of automation, operational excellence, and operational streamlining, which is sort of grouped into that concept of autonomic operation, is actually sitting right behind it. It's a trend that we've been seeing the last couple of years, and we expect that trend to continue over the next 5 years. Things like root cause analysis, quality management, self-healing assets, and increased efficiency of those assets to keep them usable and keeping them effective are all major use cases. But we think autonomy is going to be the prime mover. Interestingly enough, autonomic operations and robotic manufacturing go hand in terms of how they contribute to creating this next generation manufacturing environment. Next slide, please. So when we look at another piece of data, the top 3 drivers for organizations in manufacturing is, number 1 was improving quality compliance and the ability to mitigate risk, as we mentioned earlier, and then efficiency and work process efficiency. Now, the lowest priority item on that list was reducing the reliance on skilled workers, but it's certainly an element of the transformation we're seeing in manufacturing as autonomic processes become much more critical, and we're looking to remove failure points, but also to use people in the best way they can be used. So boring, repetitive tasks is not the optimum application of human skill, but managing exception and making decisions certainly is. So that sort of transition in how the process flow runs is certainly being seen. Key technologies, digital manufacturing is certainly one. We have to put in all the fundamentals so we can connect up all the pieces of equipment on the factory floor, in the supply chain and in the distribution chain. And then we have that visibility to what's going on, and we can then build out automation solutions, because without a smart factory, automation doesn't fit in. So if we go to the next slide, please. I'm trying to get through this without taking more than my 10 minutes. So how do we actually realize the delivery of autonomous operations? The major driver, and almost at twice the level of interest of any other players, is systems integrators. So a strong SI presence with domain capabilities and connections with OT solution providers are seen as critical to the success. One classic example here, which is really impressive, is a major Japanese power generator who does both gas-fired and coal-fired and also renewable sources of energy, was looking to increase the autonomy of their power plants. And the drivers behind that was not only efficiency, but a desire to create an improved or a reduced environmental impact, drive the utilization of assets more effectively, and thus reduce the overall cost of generation per gigawatt. Now, in the 2 trial plants that have run up already of the 26 plants they have, they've actually realized a measurable benefit of about $1.5 to $2 million reduction in cost per gigawatt of capacity. Now, with their total network being about 65 gigawatts, this makes a significant improvement to the bottom line. But at the same time, they've added percentage points of efficiency to key assets like boilers and other parts of the electricity production chain. And they've also reduced their nitrous oxide emissions and other harmful gases by also a number of percentage points. So using the TCS IP2 solution, they were able to bring together all the information from sensors that were already in the plant and equipment and create these insights that allowed them to drive further towards autonomous operation. Next slide, please. So as we can see, over the next couple of years, they are looking to take the use cases that they actually implemented. And you'll notice that the implementation of those use cases was actually within 12 to 18 months, so a pretty fast turnaround. But they ended up with 16 use cases in one plant and 24 in another, and then are looking to roll this out now to all of their plants and across Japan. So it's a really standout solution because of the fact that it's got those multiple dimensions of value, right? Increased sustainability, increased asset efficiency, and reduction in the cost of delivery of the core product, which is a gigawatt of electricity. Next slide, please. So a couple of other observations for you before we go into the discussion. As we mentioned, we believe that by 2022, the investments in the solutions around autonomous operations will increase in the region by around 40%. We also believe that in the same time period, 60% of the global 2000 companies are going to be increasingly driven by customer experience. And that customer experience urgency is going to drive them towards, IoT-like deployments. And that is a change from a more inward-focused cost management priority that we saw in 2020. And then the third one I wanted to mention was the role of edge infrastructure. We're going to move data collection and data analytics closer to the point of producing that data or the point of actually executing a process, so that we can now deliver real outcomes in either real time or predictive outcomes, so better than real time. And those investments will grow from about 20% today at the edge to about 90% in 2024 as we see this IT-OT convergence in digital engineering. Next slide, please. So, a couple of things that IDC thinks we should be looking at, and we're going to have to click through these if you'd be so kind, is, build a roadmap, understand what's necessary, build the priorities in your business, invest in automation as a starting point, look for the outcomes, look for the value generated within the organization, and then can modify the roadmap as required. Ensure you've got the fundamentals in place. So look to transform either plant and equipment that is not, smart aware, and use third-party pieces of equipment to actually enable data to be gathered and transmitted effectively, or invest in new equipment which is smart aware. And then optimize your warehousing and your supply chain management to maximize flexibility and resilience, especially in light of the pandemic, and manage your risk through continuous innovation. So looking at things that are not optimal, and then looking at the value proposition that will contribute to those sustainable metrics that we mentioned earlier on. Thank you, and look forward to the discussion ahead. Back to you, Charlene.